It's Tuesday, April 13. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has defended his administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. He was responding to questions from journalists of the Jamaica Observer in a recent episode of Access, a program where Mr. Holness engages with the media. The question was in reference to the island's COVID-19 spikes, which are in contrast of the early days of the pandemic when the island maintained low infection numbers.
Jamaica continues to manage the pandemic exceptionally well. And regardless of the spikes that we have had, the system that we have put in place is robust, it's evidence-based, it's always scientifically determined, it is situationally appropriate. We craft measures according to circumstances, and it is proportionate, meaning that we don't do more than we need to do to bring the situation under control. So that has been the principle that we have established, and that principle has worked for a year. If you look at Jamaica relative to other countries, Jamaica's size and circumstances, you would see that we have not only managed to save lives, but to maintain livelihoods.
Mr. Holness says the government has walked a tightrope of balance between managing the pandemic and maintaining the island's economy.
You would have seen other countries expressing concern about their ability to meet their expenses, pay their staff, pay their workers, and so forth. You would hear countries also expressing concerns about their solvency, their ability to repay their debt. We have managed the pandemic through careful balance. And so if you are just using a metric of how many persons are infected, then you would be just using one dimension of the pandemic. You have to look first at the social stability, which continues in the country. You have to look at economic activity. You know, if you were to take Jamaica and compare it to other countries in the region, Jamaica's borders are open. We were amongst the first to reopen for tourism. Over almost 600,000 persons have visited Jamaica since we resumed controlled entry into the country. And that is a massive impact on our economy. To do that whilst managing the pandemic at the same time is incredible.
In a race against time and the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ministry of Health and Wellness embarked on a plan to vaccinate 50,000 Jamaicans in 5 days. They surpassed the goal. More from Marlon Samuels.
More than 50,000 Jamaicans received one dose of the coronavirus vaccine over a 5-day period. It is the outcome of the biggest inoculation program Jamaica's Ministry of Health and Wellness has embarked on since the COVID-19 pandemic. Of the 75,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine received from the African Medical Supply Platform on Thursday, April 8, only 14,000 remained on Tuesday, April 13. Though vaccination sites were scheduled to open at 10, lines began forming at 5 on Tuesday morning. At the National Arena in Kingston, many were anxious that they will not be able to get vaccinated when news spread that only 14,000 doses remained. The campaign to provide as many people as quickly as possible with an approved vaccine continues.
Remember, it's about safety and the response to COVID-19.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Senator Matthew Samuda, says the Department of Correctional Service has been effective in its management of the COVID-19 pandemic. He says the success is due in part to foresight, noting preventative measures such as staff and inmates sensitization, infrastructural changes such as increased ventilation and designated isolation areas.
We have used the basic science in this management. Reduced interactions, whether by external visitors or inter-block exchanges. We have put in place the necessary sanitation mechanisms. We have also started the process and in some cases made the infrastructural changes to facilitate greater ventilation.
Minister Samuda was addressing a recent virtual public forum held by the University of the West Indies. There has been a slight drop in new COVID-19 cases for the island. This comes even as there is a vaccination drive across the country. We get the latest clinical summary figures from the health authorities.
In the COVID-19 summary for Monday, April 12, 161 new cases and 6 deaths were reported. The death toll now stands at 682. One of the deaths was a positive case recorded over the past 24 hours. The overall case count is now at 42,924, with 22,802 active cases. The parish breakdown is as follows. Kingston and St. Andrew had 37 positives, St. Thomas 29, St. Mary 20, and St. Catherine 14. St. Anne recorded 11 positives, while Clarendon and St. James had 10 each. Portland and Westmoreland both had 8, Hanover had 6, Trelawney 5, Chester 3, and St. Elizabeth recorded none. For recoveries, 119 were reported, bringing that total to 19,136. At this time, there are 384 persons in hospital, with 35 patients being moderately ill and 37 critical. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
305 children have been diverted from the criminal justice system through the work of the National Child Diversion Program. Speaking at a recent JIS think tank, Justice Minister Leroy Chuck explains that the key to preventing juvenile criminal activity is to redirect their path. The Justice Minister gave 4 points to explain the objectives of the Child Diversion Program.
To reduce the number of children who are charged with offenses and consequently, as a result, exposed to the formal criminal justice system. B, to increase the use of diversionary programs that are expected to rehabilitate children as a response to crime and wrongdoing. C, to protect the rights of the child in keeping with international instruments and protocols to which Jamaica is a party. And D, to reduce the number of children who are institutionalized in lockups and correctional centers due to minor criminal offenses.
Minister Chuck says his team has contracted through UNICEF a child divergent consultant, Ruth Carey, to lay the groundwork for the program.
Child diversion is a process of diverting children ages 12 to 17 from the formal justice system. It's basically to ensure that every child in conflict with the law is treated in a manner that recognizes and upholds human dignity and worth, diverts the child from engaging in deviant and delinquent behavior.
He likened it to the drug treatment courts where offenders with drug problems are required to complete a 6-month court-directed treatment and rehabilitation program. Minister Chuck says child diversion offices have been established across the island at justice centers. He says staff have been recruited and trained, but the groundwork continues.
And indeed, over the past few weeks, we have met with all or most of the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal judges in one training session. And secondly, in another session, we have met with over 50 parish court judges to inform them about the program, how it works, and to encourage them to refer children who come before them in court to the child diversion offices.
He says plans are in place to get schools and communities involved.
Because we are committed to save our children. We are committed to ensure that children are diverted away from delinquent activities. We are committed to let our children lead a clean, disciplined, upright life.
The Justice Minister says the Child Diversion Program exemplifies Jamaica's commitment to leave no child behind. 5 people lost their lives and 10 others are being treated in hospital following a motor vehicle crash Monday morning on a PJ Patterson Highway. According to the police, about 11 o'clock, the driver of a Toyota Hiace minibus lost control of the vehicle in the vicinity of the Spanish Town exit, then collided with a truck and overturned several times before coming to rest on a section of the median. The Jamaica Stock Exchange indices declined in Monday's trading. We get these and other market updates in the Business Report with Gabriel Thompson.
In Monday's trading session, the JSE combined index declined by 2,081 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 87 stocks, of which 21 advanced, 47 declined, and 19 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 40 points to close at just over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for CAC 2000, 9.5%, Preference Shares, Siboney Group Limited, and Elite Diagnostic Limited. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, Carreras Limited, and Epley Limited 8.25%. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 14.5 million units, followed by Dermont Trading Company Limited with 2.4 million units, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 1.7 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Monday, April 12, the US dollar ended trading at $148.90. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $120.67. The pound sterling traded for $205.73, and the euro ended trading at $178.98. Oil prices ticked up on Tuesday after strong Chinese import data, but markets broadly shrugged off Middle East tensions, which have so far not disrupted oil supply. Brent crude oil futures rose 25 cents to $63.53 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 14 cents to $59.84 a barrel. And on that note, we close this Tuesday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabriel Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
Here are some of the stories making headlines across the region. We pick up in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The La Soufrière volcano fired an enormous amount of ash and hot gas early Monday in the biggest explosive eruption yet since volcanic activity began on the eastern Caribbean island of St. Vincent late last week, with officials worried about the lives of those who have refused to evacuate. Experts called it a huge explosion that generated pyroclastic flows down the volcano's south and southwest flanks. There were no immediate reports of injuries or death, but government officials were scrambling to respond to the latest eruption, which was even bigger than the first eruption that occurred last Friday morning. Roughly 16,000 people who live in communities close to the volcano had been evacuated under government orders on Thursday, but an unknown number have remained behind and refused to move. The Trinidad and Tobago government says from Tuesday it will be deploying members of the Defense Force to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The country continues to deal with explosive eruptions of the La Soufrière volcano. In a statement, the Ministry of National Security said it will be deploying 50 officers from the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. The ministry, which has been coordinating Port of Spain's assistance to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, said the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management has been coordinating efforts to collect supplies to be transported to the island on Tuesday and Wednesday. The eruption of the volcano has resulted in several people having to evacuate to several Caribbean islands, including St. Lucia and Barbados. And scientists monitoring the volcano have warned that the eruptions could continue for several weeks. In 1902, the volcano erupted, killing over 1,000 people. It last erupted in 1997, but there were no casualties. Heavy rainfall and thunderstorms associated with what weather forecasters refer to as a shear line led to intense flash floods in the north of St. Lucia on Monday. Several inches of rain were dumped on many low-lying areas, including the island's capital city, Castries. Despite the continual downpour, there were no reports of catastrophic damage, injuries, or loss of life.
The north of the island was lashed by incessant torrential rains on Monday, April 12, 2021. The heavy showers took many by surprise, with the deluge resulting in flash floods the capital and the city limits. Director of the St. Lucia Met Services, Andre Jouaye, identified the culprit behind the inclement weather.
We have a low-level shear line, which has actually been across the island from since Saturday. So we've been having some showers on and off, but because of the change in the wind flow at the surface, we have a southeasterly wind. So we're getting some moisture being pulled up from the south, and that is enhancing the rainfall over Castries, because it has a unique feature where the winds would pass over the Badlin and get cooled, and as it gets over Castries area, it would give you more intense rainfall.
Jouaye, who points to the capital city's inherent vulnerabilities to flash floods, noted that while the north was battered by the downpour, the south of the island remained relatively unscathed.
It takes very little to flood Castries. So the same amount of rainfall would fall in the south and you wouldn't get that amount of flooding. So it's not something where the flood would happen down south also.
Apart from the torrential showers on Monday, St. Lucia also came under siege from Saharan dust and particles of volcanic ash from the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. The three hazards, according to Jouaye, is reminder to officials and residents to ensure that vital resources are protected.
This could have an effect on plants and, like you said, water sources. So it's something where you have to protect your water source. In some cases with Wasco, it's too wide an area for you to protect. So I would think testing of the water after the rainfall would be recommended.
As flood waters recede, Jouaye says that while an abatement in the rainfall is expected, showers are still in the forecast. The heavy showers on Monday has led to speculation of a possible link with the volcanic eruption, but Met Office says the two events are unrelated.
Oh no, this is a low-level wind shear, and like I said, it just a coincidence that it happened around the same time with the eruption of the volcano. They could have interactions because for rainfall you would need dust particles to form rainfall. But too much would actually stifle the convection process.
So what unless you do is the
Well, try to stay out of the rain, because it's possible that the mixing of the sulfur in the volcanic ash could cause skin irritation, and protect your water sources, so cover your drums.
The confluence of events of Saharan dust, volcanic ash, and now a low-leveled wind shear created more than a manic Monday for residents in the north of St. Lucia. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
In Trinidad and Tobago, 300 families were given hampers filled with grocery items in a charity drive sponsored by the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association on Sunday. Association President Alan Ferguson said he intends to do more for the residents of Enterprise and Longdonville in the future. Kimberly D'Souza tells us more.
The charity food drive on Sunday was just the first of many projects that President of the Scrap Iron Dealers Association, Alan Ferguson, says he plans to initiate in the Enterprise and Longdonville areas. The association's first charity drive for the year was held at Mr. Ferguson's R&A supermarket in Chaguanas.
We want to do more as an association, which we want to start to assist people with their homes and all too. But this is the first for the year, and we want to continue doing more for the year as an association.
Among the items in the hamper were flour, sugar, potatoes, peas, chicken, and sausage. Recipients of the hampers said they were grateful for the drive, given the economic crisis experienced by the COVID-19 pandemic.
I got my hampers, 2 nice hamper, oil, rice, well, name it, what the house will need, and what you also will need also, and all to inside your grocery. And son, yeah, mostly appreciated. Things sometimes I cannot even buy what I run short to, I end up getting that.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing you're doing because it have plenty people that working, it are home, it are where really getting no money and things, so it's a good thing you're doing and all to sharing out and giving little food and things and helping plenty of the people that them really working and all too. So I think it's a real good thing you're doing.
One Central resident encouraged more businesses to get on board and give to those communities in need.
I would like to ask other business people to follow suit with what we is doing here this morning. Give to the needy and continue to give from your heart, because anytime you ain't giving from your heart, it makes no sense to give. So we give from our heart.
Kimberly D'Souza, TTT News.
In sports, we begin with athletics. The outdoor track and field season in the United States has picked up pace, with collegiate circuit staging more events, with last Saturday's Texas Tech University's Masked Rider Open in Lubbock, Texas. Jamaica's junior college athletes won 4 events at the meet. High jumper Romain Beckford extended his lead at the top of the National Junior College Athletics Association rankings. Long jump leader Shaquan Cook won his event. Also, 800-meter runners Tyrese Reed and Kean Green both ran college personal bests to take over their lead in their events. In other news, the torch relay for Tokyo Olympics ran through a mostly empty Osaka City Park on Tuesday. This on the same day that the government said new coronavirus cases in Osaka hit 1,099, a single-day record for Japan's second largest metropolitan area. According to an AP Sports report, the torch relay started 3 weeks ago in northeastern Japan, attempting to navigate around the pandemic with a total of 10,000 runners crisscrossing the country and bound for the opening ceremony on July 23 in Tokyo. Osaka, which announced plans last week to take the relay off city streets and bar the public, became the first detour since the relay began. Organizers warned beforehand there may be more. This illustrates risk of trying to hold the postponed games during a pandemic. The Tokyo Games, which was put off in 2020 owing to the global pandemic, is slated to run from July 23 to August 8. And that's the news. Thanks so much for watching PBCJ. And as always, keep safe.